What's happening, sports fans? How you doing? I am Kendrick, the sports guy. Good Monday to you, and it is time to play Monday morning quarterback. We're talking about the big game that went down in Austin, Texas on Saturday night between the then number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns and the then number 5 ranked Georgia Bulldogs in a big SEC showdown. Let's talk about what went down in this segment. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that follow button. 30-15 was the final. The Bulldogs get the victory. Between these two SEC foes now. This is the first year for Texas in the SEC conference. And matter of fact, this is the first time that these two programs have met since 1958. Again, Georgia was able to leave Austin with the 30-15 victory. Now, this game was filled with quite a few miscues, in my opinion, and we're going to talk about that. Let's look at the numbers. Bulldogs were able to run the football efficiently on that Longhorns defense. They racked up 110 yards. The Longhorns were only able to get 29. The turnovers, the Bulldogs had three, I believe it was 3 interceptions by Carson Beck. The Longhorns had 4 themselves. Quinn Ewers, he had 2 fumbles and an interception, and also Arch Manning had a fumble that was therefore miscues. So this game was filled with fumbles, miscues, interceptions, penalties, and we're going to talk about that big penalty that was overturned here in just a second and the ramifications of what happened after that. Again, Georgia's quarterback Carson Beck, 23 of 41, 175 yards. He had 3 interceptions. Quinn Ewers was 25 of 43, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 2 fumbles. Again, both the quarterbacks did not play well, and I think everybody was talking about Heisman candidates, who's the front runner. I would probably say these two aren't the front runners anymore. They both they wasn't on a game. Maybe that has something to do with the defense. Both defenses kind of dictated how the offense was played. Speaking of that, Georgia's defense, they sacked Texas quarterbacks, that's Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, 7 times. So that had a lot to do with it. Georgia's defense was dogs, no pun intended. Now Georgia's running back Trevor Etienne had 3 touchdowns on the ground, and he ran well. He was gashing the Longhorns defense. So again, this game was highly anticipated. Again, I think it was exciting, but I was kind of the quarterback play didn't live up to what I thought it was going to be. Now, let's talk about the quarterback play on the Texas side, because head coach Steve Sarkisian decided to put Arch Manning in for a few plays because of the ineffectiveness of Quinn Ewers. Now, do we have a quarterback controversy in Austin? Could be, because I think Sarkisian put his starter in a bad spot by subbing Arch Manning in, even though he was inefficient. Let him play through it. And I just think now you kind of creating this thing like, okay, you're going to have people saying, well, Arch Manning, even though he didn't do anything as well, his stats didn't, he was 3 for 6 for 19 yards, and he had 1 turnover, that fumble. So it wasn't like he came in and did anything better than what Quinn Ewers was doing. But what I'm saying is, Sarkisian kind of now created, on his own volition, a quarterback controversy, which I don't think there should be. I think Quinn Ewers should be the starting quarterback for this team going forward, unless, barring injury. So now, let's look at this SEC. Where does it stack up? Oh, by the way, let's talk about that play, that controversial penalty that was overturned by the referees. That pass interference on the Texas DB, who eventually got the interception. And when we looked at the replay, it wasn't, in my eyes, I didn't think it was pass interference. And so that got the boo birds out. Steve Sarkisian was hollering at the refs. Longhorn fans started throwing stuff on the field, and Sarkisian was having to try to tell the crowd to cut it out and stop it. And then the referees had time to look at that play again, and they overturned it. They did it, so the Longhorns were able to keep the ball, and I believe they scored off of that possession. Well, head coach Kirby Smart wasn't happy about that, and I get it. He said, now, are we setting a precedent where fans if they don't like a call, they start throwing stuff on the field. Then the referees got time to look at it again. They can overturn it. We can't do that. And I agree with Kirby Smart on that. But I think the right thing was done. I think that play should have been overturned. Now, speaking of these fans throwing that stuff on the field, SEC has fined the Longhorns, the University of Texas, $250,000 for those fans littering the field with cups and ice and all that. So they got hit in the back pocket for that. Now let's talk about the SEC right now. Georgia now is 6-1. They 4-1 in the SEC. Texas is 6-1. They first lost. They are 2-1 in the SEC. AP rankings came out on Sunday. Georgia has moved up to number 2. They are number 2 behind Oregon, who's number 1. Texas dropped from number 1 to number 6. Now the SEC has 4 of the top 10 teams. 4 teams from the SEC is in the top 10. That's Georgia, Texas, LSU, Tennessee, and they are 8 in the top 20 from the SEC. That's A&M at number 14, Bama at 15. So again, that's where we stand. It's going to be a dogfight for this SEC championship, and I think this is the best conference in college football. I've always said that, and it continues. Now, Texas got a tough road ahead. I was looking at their schedule. They go to Vandy. They got Florida. They are at Arkansas. Then they got Kentucky. Then they are at Texas A&M on November 30th. That's a pretty tough schedule. They don't really have any margin of error. Kentucky a couple of weeks ago gave Georgia a scare, so that's not going to be a walk in the park. Vandy, we know what they've done. They've already upset Alabama. So Texas, they can't sleep on this loss because they got to get ready for Vanderbilt. As far as Georgia, they got Florida at Ole Miss, Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech. They really got a pretty easy schedule down the road, and they might get a cakewalk into the SEC championship. So we'll see. Oh, by the way, I forgot, I left out Missouri is ranked number 17, and Ole Miss is number 18 in the AP poll as well. So again, Texas, this was probably one of the biggest games that they've had in quite some time. They couldn't get it done, 30-15. I think a few things that they could, if they would have, cut out the turnovers, took advantage of the turnovers that they created, this game could have been totally different, and they could have got the W. So there you have it. So we'll see what happens in the good old SEC. Like to know what you guys thought about Texas, Georgia. In the comments, talk to me, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that follow button. I'm Kenji the Sports Guy, We will see you on the other side, and on the next report, I am out. Peace.